Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
Are you trying to mute me?
No, it's just real loud, and I can't.
I sold Amazon when it was $25.
Listening to listen, not listening to respond.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. You know what? Life is short. That is a really good segue into what I want to talk about with you today. It's great that you said that, because that's right where my mind is. And it's been that way for myself lately too, for some reason, like personally, right? Just me personally looking at things like that. I think part of it is because of what's happened in the last year and how things are, you start looking at things from a different perspective. And honestly, the conversation that you and I started to have last week contributed to me kind of looking at things retrospectively, right? I'm in the middle, or maybe the second half of my career, so to speak, and getting to speak with you and finding out that you were officially, officially on the other side of that part of your career.
Right.
That's where my mind is right now. So I wanted to talk to you kind of about that. I have a few notes that I may or may not get to, but I think you really contributed to wherever my mind has already been lately. So initially, I'd like it if you could just introduce yourself to me like we don't know each other. Tell me who you are and a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm William Branson III, and I'm retired.
That's so perfect. That's perfect. Now, okay, so you're retired. In your mind, that's great to hear you say it, because I wanted to know where you were at with things, right? Because my dad retired a couple years ago, but he still does stuff. You know what I mean? Like, he's not just playing golf. He's not just sitting back watching TV or having a beer on the veranda. He still does stuff. He's in construction, so he's got his shop and he's always up there. And, he's doing construction projects, of course, around the house now. And, part of me is like, Dad, you can pay people to do that now. You don't need to do it yourself. But it's like, it's part of who he is. So where's your mindset now on the other side? And we'll touch on this right now, and I want to get back to it later. But where's your mindset now on the other side of your retirement?
Well, I don't know. I see myself different than your dad. Yes, I can. I'm doing a couple of portraits a year.
A little bit here and there.
Yeah. But, do I have a desire to pick up a camera? No. I am. So I don't know. I kind of look at life in three different segments. The segment is when you're a child and you're just playing and life is good. You come home and lunch is ready for you, and you go back out and play or whatever, and then you have to be in a certain time for dinner, and dinner is ready for you, and then it's bath time, you go to bed, and you go the next day and do it over again, and life is good.
Yeah,
but we don't realize it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Then there's that segment of business and working.
Yeah.
And that's the way I looked at photography, creating portraits. It was my business.
Right.
And so I was focused on that and preparing for that third segment of life. And that is, where I am today,
right,
where I don't have to go back to the business. I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying friends and things like that. So,
So
I'm not dying to go pick up a camera.
and I get that part. And again, my dad isn't dying to pick up a shovel, right?
Right. Yeah.
He just still finds himself doing a little bit of this and a
Gotcha.
little bit of that because it's part of who he is. But he's not.
Right.
He was a landscaper. He's not out there digging ditches and planting bushes anymore. He's not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and what I wanted to get at with you is now, okay, because now you are on that other side, right? You're in your third act, your third part, so to speak, however you
Yes.
want to say it.
Right.
Now you can look back, because we can all do this on little portions of our life, is kind of look back at that season or that phase or that segment. Well, yours happens to be your 50-year career, right?
Mhm. Right.
As you look back on your this really, really well done career, honestly, especially in a relative sense, what strikes me initially about you is that you created a huge high-end brand, right? As you look back retrospectively, how did you do that? Like, was that intentional from day one? Did you go in thinking this is what I'm going to do? Or did it happen naturally? I'd like to hear your thoughts on how that part happened for you, because you rose to the upper echelon in our industry of portrait photographers, and you did that. How did you do that?
Fear. Seriously, the fear of failure.
Really, that was a huge motivating piece for you.
Yes, the fear of not being able to provide for my family, to give, my children went to private schools their entire lives.
Yep.
Went to private universities. I remember, the years where in high school, for both of them, when they were in high school, back in the 90s.
Yeah.
It was costing me $40,000 a year. That's after
in the 90s
tax money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was the fear of failing and not being able to provide that continually pushed me to succeed. And then I also have that desire to produce the best that I can for my clients.
Right. And
if I'm going to do that, then I want to be compensated for it. Why should any other person out there that is making good money, why should they be able to make a good living and I can't?
And not you. Right.
So, there's that saying, if it is to be, it is up to me.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was, for me, that was just the driving force. Now, in my early years, before I even got into photography, my grandmother painted. And so, I was around her all the time.
Right.
And so art had always been in the family and in my life.
Yes. Right.
So,
and that's kind of a big piece of your brand, kind of your signature style, is that higher end painterly look. Painting. It's an actual painting. That's not just done digitally, right? You're actually going in and you're actually painting.
The images. So my technique is, I start with a photographic image, paint it digitally, output it, and then go back over it with oils and acrylics.
Right.
Yeah, it's growing up in my family, paintings. We had paintings of all of our of ancestors.
Yeah.
And my portrait was painted when I was a child.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and so I can remember sitting for it and
Wow.
hating it. Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, you think about it. What I think maybe like 4 years old, 5 years old.
Oh, how did you even do it?
My friends are out playing, and I'm having to go to this lady's house, and it's a pastel, and I remember having to sit in a chair by her front door for the lighting while she, created this portrait of me. And, all I could think about was all my friends were out playing. And here I am, having to sit here for this. Now I look back on it and I'm very grateful.
Yeah, because you have that. Right.
That I have that.
Right.
And I have it to pass down to my children and to my grandchildren.
As you look back then too, again, retrospectively, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
That you have this, that you really have this ability to see as you look back. What stands out in your mind as like the biggest win in general for you? Like where you look back and you're like, I nailed that. I crushed that. Right? Like that's kind of a crowning achievement. Does something stand out to you or initially come to your mind?
Nah.
Because you crushed it all.
No, I didn't. There are lots of failures, along the way. No different than Disney. Walt Disney. He had many failures along the way before.
Yeah, Edison talks about that too, right? Like all the different. Right.
I had failures, and it was those failures that pushed me.
Yeah.
To get to where I am and ended up today.
So what did a failure look like for you when you're kind of in the mire? Is it that, you didn't market something right, or there was a miscommunication, or what did some of that look like that on the other side of that, you decided to just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get after it again?
Well, it's like that along the way for everything. Even when I became very successful, there were still failures along the way. Now, when I say failures, there were marketing things that I would go to that I would come up with and approach for third party things or whatever, and I'd get kicked to the curb. And then you're like, and I knew that if that it was a good thing, it would be a good thing for everyone.
Yeah.
And so I would then push it in somebody else,
right?
Or another avenue thing. So, but back in the early days, I struggled.
Yeah.
It was, and I go back to that word of fear, the fear of failing, the fear of my children looking at me as a failure.
Wow. That was the big one. So for you, it was your kids seeing that.
I remember my daughter just turned 44.
Mm-hmm.
I remember her first Christmas. I remember it as if it were yesterday. And I was so grateful that she would never remember that Christmas, because I couldn't afford to buy her a gift. I couldn't afford to buy my wife a gift. I mean, I was like struggling. So I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like I know fear, and I just don't want to feel that ever again.
What pulled you? What was there a tipping point or a turning point or something that happened to, I mean, because you obviously kept at it, right? You didn't give up. You're motivated by this fear. You're struggling, but you keep going, you keep going, you keep going. Is this like in the 70s, maybe? My math is right.
I started in 72 is when I started my business.
Right. I read that.
So it was, but believe it or not, it was into the 90s.
Really?
And I was still, I was plugging along and making a living.
Right.
But it was, I wasn't really saving anything. It was taking, what I was making. And the huge turnaround in my life was being introduced to Philip Stewart Charis.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I went and studied with him.
Yeah.
And back in the 90s, for me to study with him for 4 days was $10,000.
Yeah.
But
people I don't think people realize how much that was. Add a zero. It's almost like you can add a zero right now. That.
Yeah. And it was studying with him. When I came away after 4 days, what really resonated with me and stuck with me was, I can do this.
Really? That was the big thing.
I can do this.
Like a confidence? Like you had a confidence that I can make this happen.
Yeah. I literally, because at that point before studying with him, I was doing all outdoor, casual photography.
Now you changed like your whole look. You brought everything in. You started photographing that classic portrait style look. Am I getting this right?
Yeah. Okay. So I had good sales,
right?
But not nothing compared to
what happened,
what
right?
it morphed into. Yeah.
Right.
I saw that people paid big money,
right?
And so I came back to my studio, and I think I'm ADD, and so I think most of us are. Yeah, if you're
talked to a lot of photographers that are. Yeah.
So I didn't think about it. I came back and I totally flipped my business within a matter of a couple months.
Yes.
Stopped doing outdoor work, only doing studio work and classic. Now I had been working with Alpha Color out in California at the time, because they were doing my high end images on canvas with heavily retouched, the works. And they were the ones that introduced me to Charis, because MRT, who owned the company, would see my work and said, you really, you need to meet this guy. You need to study with him.
Right.
And so, so that's what I did. So when I came back, I totally flipped everything. And that went along for about a year. And then I discovered the software that now is owned by Corel.
Right.
And that's
Painter.
Painter. I think it was Genuine Fractals back then.
Yeah, something different, right? Right.
Yeah. And so I always wanted to produce paintings, and I saw this as an avenue. And
You've basically saw it as a way to do what you had wanted to do.
Yep.
It was almost like the technology was now there and you had access to it. And then you had this motivation based on fear and then this confidence. Like it was almost like everything kind of came together right around then. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
And again, we can look like maybe you don't even realize it at the time initially, especially, but looking back retrospectively, you can see that like all these pieces were coming together to fit right there. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it was, I saw the potential that was there.
How did your clients react to such a shift? Because I look at it from a studio owner myself, and I think, to do something for such a long time and to be somewhat well established, and then, in a short amount of time, a matter of a couple months or whatever, to completely shift and then start to go even more high end. How did you deal with that? Was there pushback? Did you lose people? Were people confused? Like, how did you handle that back then?
Well, no confusion. If I lost people, I didn't know it.
Okay.
Because the clients, I knew when I developed this look, and combining the digital
right
with and I knew that it was important to be seen as the very first.
Yeah.
It's like Xerox made the copy machine.
Yeah.
Yep. People would always ask for a Xerox, make a Xerox of this.
Right.
Right.
Like a Kleenex or a Band-Aid. Like there's a word for that. I don't remember what it is, but you call it that.
Yes. Yeah. So at that point, then I needed to get the word out that I was doing it. And I knew that in marketing, it would, what I was offering was going to attract a small segment of a population. Because when I came back, my prices went way up.
Right.
And so there would be people that it was too expensive.
Well, so that's the thing. Okay. And so that's the piece right there that I find when I have discussions and consultations with people, like that's the piece that they say stops them. That's the part they're afraid of, is raising their prices and then having to deal with their clients or even potential clients saying, that's pretty steep.
So here's what I see as I teach.
Yeah.
Is the problem.
Yeah.
Most photographers, not all, but most, sell to themselves and to what they can afford.
Yep.
And you're not selling to you.
Yep.
So just because you can't afford what you're selling,
right.
All right, does that mean that you can't work for Tiffany's as a salesperson because you can't afford their jewelry?
Right. So good. Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
So, I lost people.
Yeah.
So here was my business model. The way I put my business together now, as everything is coming together.
Mm-hmm.
My prices were developed based on what I personally wanted to make a year. So I figured.
So you worked backwards, kind of?
Yeah. So I wanted to max out my salary for Social Security.
Yep.
Because I knew at some point I was going to want to retire.
Right.
And so
right.
I want to get somebody's got to, I can't look for the government to support me.
Right.
If it is to be, it is up to me.
Right.
Max out my salary in Social Security and then have X number of dollars in bonus after that to then invest in retirement. What is my overhead?
Right. Yeah.
I look at that number, I take that number and I go, okay, I want to do right now 100 sessions a year. I divide 100 into the number.
Yep.
Boom. That's what I need to average per sale, right?
And then you price appropriately, right?
And then price appropriately.
Yeah.
All right. Now that separates the boys
Yeah.
and the men.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, they're going to be those that maybe were past clients that are no longer clients. I need to get out into the world. So I saw that my marketing needed to be worldwide.
Right.
I can't count on my town to support me.
You can't stay in a small radius. No. Right.
So when I made this change, I then went to a huge regional mall and signed a contract with them. And this was in 98. Signed a contract for an exhibit in the center of their mall for October, November, and December. Those are going to be big traffic months.
Right. Lots of people.
Yeah. And again, I wanted to be Xerox.
Right.
All right.
Right.
It was $2,500 a month for 3 months. Okay. $7,500.
Yep.
And so I built an exhibit that I wanted it to look museum-like.
Yes.
I had theater roping around everything.
Yep.
Huge portraits on easels. And that being a regional mall that drew from not only the state of North Carolina, but from South Carolina and Virginia.
Yeah, everybody came. Yep.
Opened up. I mean, it was huge. And yeah, I'm spending a lot of money.
Right.
But I'm getting a lot. And then I had a good friend of mine who had an advertising agency who said, you need to be in, a national magazine. I'm like, okay, so, what are we looking at? And I think it was like a half-page ad, excuse me, was it was like $18,000 for, and I said, Tim, this is, he says, no, he says, really, trust me. He says, I'll tell you what, do a portrait of me. I'll give it to my wife, and we'll do this. We'll do this ad. I said, okay. So he did it. Did the ad. What did the ad produce? 0. So I'm like, and Tim comes back to me. He says, you need to do another ad. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right.
He says, no. He says, you have to do it like 3 times before you get any.
Well, he tells you that then.
Yeah. After so now, so I did 2 more half-page ads.
You did it.
Yeah. And what did I get from it? Nothing.
Oh,
Okay. Now at this point, I'm writing checks for these ads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then he says to me, he says, he says that the half-page ads aren't going to get it. He says, you need full-page ads.
Okay.
And that's what I said. I said, okay.
Wow.
I trusted him. So
Wow.
I did a full page ad, my first full page ad. And this was in Southern Accents magazine, which exists no longer, but it's like Veranda today.
I remember Southern Accents. Yeah.
Yeah. That one ad brought me 3 clients. One client from Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
And so then at that point, he said, see, it works.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah. I then just started doing ads because, it takes months to create a portrait. So I was in the March, April issue every year until they dissolved the magazine, which was for like 10, 12, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was in that magazine. And you know what that magazine did for me more than anything else? I mean, I would, yes, I got, clients from it. Now, not a ton of clients,
but you got the right
clients that the right clients, and it paid for my next ad.
Right.
From those ads qualified me.
Yes. Yep.
And so people in the industry do not realize how important it is to have that qualification out there.
Well, for what you're talking about, especially because also when you have more of the right clients, you don't need a lot of them, right?
Correct.
You're not,
correct.
You said 100 sessions a year, right? Like we used to joke that our goal was to do 1 session a year, $1 million average, right? Like to have that mindset, right? I don't want hundreds and hundreds of people coming through, right?
Right. Correct.
And so when you have that mind, the other piece that sticks out to me with what you're saying, you're talking big numbers, especially, for the 90s and into the 2000s. But that's really just conceptual. If you think, who wouldn't spend $10 to make 100? Who wouldn't spend 18,000 to make 200,000? I'm not meaning to put numbers in your mouth, but conceptually it's the same, right?
Yep. And it's funny that, going back to something that you just mentioned. So in my business model, I wanted to work it down from those 100 sessions a year. I mean,
you wanted to go down.
Down. I mean,
so good.
Just get down to that 1 session a year that will pay.
Yes.
Okay. And why not have that mindset?
Why not?
Why have the mindset that I want to do 750 sessions a year this year?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And average
$400 a sale or less.
I'm killing myself.
Right.
Because now think about this. My friends, all had a good life. They worked for other companies.
Right.
Good salary, worked Monday through Friday.
Yep.
Punched a clock, never worried about a thing.
Right.
We as business people owning companies, you've got employees, you got to deal with everything.
There's a lot more risk there because it comes down to you. At the end of the day, it's you.
That's exactly right.
So here's this is where my mind went as you were talking there. During those years, right? Like you go and you study with Philip, right? And then you start to incorporate, you become that knowledge and all those stars kind of align. This train starts rolling, right? Then you're going global, so to speak, right? And advertising in magazines and really qualifying yourself and firming up kind of like building this foundational piece of who you are and your brand.
Right.
What and then success is just coming in, right? Like you're doing well, you're hitting your numbers, you're hitting your marks. But that was, even that is 20 years ago. As that train starts really moving, you sustained that for decades. You did that for more. It was more than just a flash in the pan. How did you sustain that? Was it the fear again? Were you even then? Was it motivated by that fear?
Fear. Absolutely. Each year you've got to do better.
I love the honesty of that. Right?
But don't we all?
Well,
don't we all have fear?
I think so, but I don't think a lot of people, especially in your position, in my experience, I don't hear a lot of people saying it. You're different in that way to me. And I'm impressed by it. It strikes me, right? Because I think you're right. I think that is a big factor for the majority of people. But in my experience, I haven't spoken to a lot of people who are on the other side, so to speak, right? And in that third wonderful phase that everybody wants to get to, so to speak. And then, because people are like, well, I worked hard and I was motivated by this, that, or and they give you the list of whatever they say. I just don't hear a lot of people, I don't know, maybe admitting that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not ashamed to.
Right. And you should, nobody should be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter though what your motivation is. It's being motivated,
right,
and doing that. I could have worked, and I love creating portraits, and so I do it for free and give it away to everybody, and then it comes to I'm in my 60s, or which I'm fortunate to be able to retire early, and or I'm in my 70s and I look and I go, I can't quit. I've got to keep working because I played all my life. Right. For me, my portrait business was just that. It was a business. Mm-hmm. To provide not only for my family and what have you, but I loved creating for people. I loved creating the portraits that I created. Right. But it was a business as well, and so I had to have those two different mindsets of creating and enjoying that, but business. And looking into the future and knowing that I'm going to want to retire at some point, and I'm going to want to not retire and have to slum it. Right. Well, you loved creating, and you loved creating those pieces for your clients, and it was a means to an end. It wasn't an either or thing for you. It was both of those things. Right. And there's no reason to be ashamed of that whatsoever. I think I really appreciate that piece, and it really stands out to me. So now transition to, today. Yeah. What is life like for you now on the other side? You still do a little bit here and there. Certainly isn't the same. You don't need to. What are things like for you now? Well, life is great. I love it. There's no alarm clock, Yeah. There's, I get up in the mornings and I have my coffee, read the news and go, oh, what am I going to do today? I'm going to go hiking or biking or, there's golf. Right. always projects at the house, things that I want to do. Spending time with my wife, my family, our grandchildren are here.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday at 3:00, I'm at two different schools picking up grandkids.
Oh,
And playing with them in the afternoon, dinner with them last night. I mean, life is great because knock on wood, financially, I am very comfortable, and I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about anything anymore. I don't have employees to worry about.
Yeah.
I think, closing my business in December of 2019 was, whoa, how lucky.
Retrospectively, that was a good move.
Oh my God. Yeah. And pure luck. And as I say about everything, I was just lucky. I was lucky with everything. I mean, things just were, worked out for me. But last year I didn't worry about anything.
Right.
Other than contracting COVID.
Right.
Worry that you had. So
very fortunate place to be in. Yeah.
So, I recommend retirement to everyone if you can retire, and not have to worry. I mean,
but you worked on it, you planned for it. It was a part of that for the majority of that time, especially after the struggle at the beginning. I think that your honesty, not just with me, but maybe even with yourself, contributes to avoiding a huge pitfall that I see a lot of creatives struggle with, is in that their personal identity gets so wrapped up into their business as well. Like it's kind of like who they are. But I feel like you also sidestepped that landmine to some degree, in that not only did you enjoy the creation piece, but also it was that means to an end. Like you kind of held both of those things together. And I think that also helped you not have to deal with maybe the grieving process that I see some people go through when they do get to the other side. Does that make sense? Like you are so much more than your business, right? That's what you did. And that's a big part of who you were then. But that was that second phase. That was that second part. And it seems to me like you had a good self-awareness of that during that whole piece. And so when it was time to transition to the third part, you're not struggling with, who am I now, or what am I going to do now, right? Which I hear a lot of people have trouble with sometimes.
Yeah, and maybe it's just because I'm not very smart that I would think that deeply.
Maybe it's that you're really smart and you're on the other side of it. Oh man, I really appreciate you taking the time. I really appreciate your honesty. That was really, really great. I didn't expect anything else, but you're very forthcoming, and I think that that's a gift, both to me and to other people that are watching and listening. And I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Jed. It was great.
Enjoy your retirement, sir.
Trust me. I plan to.
I'll see you next time.
I hope so. All right, buddy. Take care.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right there. It's there somewhere.